Today's edition of the Nutgraf, published on 31st May 2025, is titled What Creatives Know That AI Startups Don't. AI startups in India are asked to prove their worth over and over with free pilots and POCs. Meanwhile, creatives are learning to win businesses by doing the opposite. If you're a B2B AI startup in India, your biggest problem isn't revenue, costs, profit, or even talent. It's time wasters. Like most things in life, this seems to be a uniquely Indian problem. Here's Vaibhav Domkundwar, CEO of Better Capital, a pre-seed VC fund, explaining why some AI startups have adopted a Skip India movement. It's a tweet, I'm just going to read it out. Skip India movement. AI founders finally skipping selling to Indian customers after doing POCs after POCs and then being requested for even more free POCs. There is a limit to this, and founders are saying screw it and skipping selling to Indian customers. Enough is enough. Even unicorns are using these startup founders who are 10x better than their internal teams for freebies. I guess some things never change. P.S. This is based on primary data. That's the tweet. This isn't a one off rant. Paras Chopra, founder of Lost Funk, an AI startup, replied to the original post with, quote, I have banned builders at Lost Funk to talking to Indian customers, end quote. The thread quickly grew as other founders added their thoughts and breakdowns. Most of it is predictable. However, Domkundwar is not off the mark. This has been happening in India for years, and as usual, AI just cranks it up a notch. For those less familiar with the dynamics of B2B sales, here's what everyone is griping about. Suppose you're a new startup who makes a shiny new piece of software, say a tool that helps a company's HR team to do hiring more smartly. You then put up a website that describes in detail why your software is amazing. You add screenshots, videos, and explainers to your features in detail. And finally, at the bottom of the page, you place a button that says something like, I'm interested, which takes a user to a form that they have to fill out and share some basic details. One day, you get an email informing you that somebody has filled out this form. Naturally, you assume that the next step is a brief call where you talk to this person and ask, how many licenses do you want? And then you send the invoice to them because clearly they have done their research and they already know what they're buying. Oh, my sweet innocent poor child. What actually happens is that this is what you find out during the call. Number one, the lead you received is from an intern at the company or worse, someone from middle management with an impressive sounding but ultimately useless designation like Director of Global Solutions and Strategic Initiatives or something like that. Two, this person then asks you to walk them through the product features. So you spend half an hour reading out the same thing you had written on your website. Three, they look suitably impressed and then they say something like, we are really interested in your product. Can you do a demo for our senior vice president? We'll schedule another call. At this point, you're thinking of closing the sale, so you agree. 4. You don't hear back from them for a week. All your emails go unanswered. 5. Suddenly, the SVP shows up in your inbox a month later asking for a demo. You schedule another call with this person who obviously has no clue about the past conversation and now needs another walkthrough about your product all over again. 6. The SVP looks suitably impressed and asks for a POC, a proof of concept. They say something like, we want to be sure we're picking the right product, so why don't you take a month and show us how this software would work for our business processes? They insist that this is a mandatory step to justify the business investment. They hint that they have a huge budget. They ask for a trial period to use the product after you've done this. 7. You think that the SVP is an idiot, but you agree. Big budget means big bucks. This is a lot of work for you, but if this is what it takes to convince this big company, so be it. You go and fight with your boss. 8. You finish doing the POC and you send it over to them. In your email, you gently ask them for another meeting to close the deal. 9. This time, they ghost you for another 2 months. 10. One afternoon, Someone else with an equally impressive sounding designation shows up in your inbox and says that they love your product and are on the verge of making a decision. They ask to use your product for another quarter to make sure that there's adoption in the team. They insist that this is the last step and that they're evaluating just two products simultaneously and they want to make a decision and pick one. 11. You think, let me extend their trial for one last time and get them hooked. They've spent as much time as you going back and forth, so they seem serious about this. 12. They aren't. 13. 2 years later, you quit B2B sales and moved on to other fulfilling things in life, and suddenly, out of nowhere, you get a phone call from an unknown number. It's a procurement guy from the same company. They want to buy one license for $10, and they also want a 50% discount. 14. Before you say anything, the procurement guy tells you that he sent a form for vendor registration, which asks you to upload the last 10 years of your company's IT returns, 17 GST certificates, the latest org chart, and the Aadhaar cards of every employee in your company. It's always been somewhat of a mystery to me why selling software, AI or otherwise, to Indian companies is so cumbersome. One theory I have is that a lot of people exist in organizations with no real decision making powers but pretend that they do. In some ways, the bureaucracies at Indian private companies rival that of government organizations. When paired with a thin domestic market, this feature all but guarantees that Indian SaaS companies end up selling to the West. The startups who sell software are right to be frustrated by all this. However, they also believe that this is a problem that's only uniquely faced by them. And this is where they are wrong. As usual with AI disruption, it was creative workers who bore the brunt first. The original victims of the tyranny of these endless pitches with little commitment were people who sold creative services. These are typically offered by agencies, freelancers, or studios and span a wide range of industries from design to strategy to content. Think stuff like UX design, branding, social media marketing, video production, content production, and optimization. They experience the same annoyances. Make us one video and show us what you can do. Or do this design for free first so we can evaluate you. Or run this campaign for us as a POC. Endless cycles of free work with the bait of offering payments for full work later. Creatives are constantly pitching. However, creatives also discovered a solution to this. If you're in the business of making or selling software to Indian customers, you should pay attention. A couple of years back at the Ken, my colleague Ruhi launched a learning vertical. The offering was simple. It helped companies learn how to use narratives effectively in their own business context. Maybe you're a tech startup crafting a story to pitch to VCs, or you want your product managers to communicate better with stakeholders through compelling storytelling. Perhaps you're preparing for a strategic launch or pivot and you need to stand out in a crowded market, but you're unsure how to shape the story that will make people care. That's where we come in. We work with the company's leaders, run several focus group discussions, and deliver multiple workshops using several frameworks and examples to teach them how to achieve these goals. We understood business, we understood how to create narratives, and we were actual practitioners. This is stuff we did every day ourselves. But here was the catch. We knew how to build a great curriculum, design impactful workshops, and train people effectively. What we didn't know was how to sell creative services. So for a while, we made the same mistakes that many B2B startups make. Chasing leads that went nowhere and wasting too much time on people who expected free work. One day, someone passed along a book with a title that immediately caught our attention. It's titled Win Without Pitching, written by Blair Enns. It was a guide with a very clear mission, that is, how to sell a creative product. Notably, in the book, a pitch is defined as, quote, an attempt to sell or win approval for one's ideas by giving them away for free, usually within a competitive, buyer driven process, end quote. I'm going to read out N's main message from the book. Quote, today, we in the creative professions find ourselves standing at a crossroads. On the one side, the process of design is finally being seen as the last great differentiator of businesses and economies, while on the other, the outputs are increasingly seen as commodities. Technology and oversupply are combining to rapidly widen the gulf between the commoditized tacticians who now bid their services against each other online and the expert practitioners who command significant fees for leading their clients to novel solutions to meaningful business challenges. The middle is disappearing. The need to choose a path is being forced upon us. If we continue to choose not to choose, the decision will be made for us, and we will be pushed down the commodity road where we will reside with thousands of other order taker suppliers who will never be free of the pitch. End quote. You be the judge of whether this is true for software at all. The manifesto is a collection of 12 proclamations. You could ask an AI to summarize it, but it won't hit the same. Just read the book, it's worth it. Some of the rules are quite provocative, like we will specialize, or we will diagnose before we prescribe, or we will address issues of money early. In essence, the book is a way for creative professionals to move away from offering a service to positioning themselves as experts, much like elite lawyers, doctors, or consultants. I'm not going to claim that one book was responsible for changing everything, but I will say that it helped us understand the problem better and prevented us from making mistakes that we would have done. We became much more comfortable saying no to people who wanted us to do a free diagnosis. We stopped making pitch decks and switched to conversations. It made us much better at filtering out people whom we knew could never make up their mind, and we became much more unapologetic about why we priced our product at twice or even thrice what others charged. And to this day, we have never done a proof of concept for anyone for free. As a result, we became selective in a good way. The sales process got much more enjoyable. We worked with companies and leaders who knew what they wanted and understood we would be committed once they demonstrated some commitment first. It was fun. I'm not sure if AI startups can adopt the same rules and even win without pitching, especially because some of the things that creative professionals understand about selling don't apply to AI in its current state. Do companies buying AI even know what they want? And what exactly makes one startup selling AI software different from another? Unless a company has access to some really proprietary data or some specific technology, I don't see how an AI startup can specialize in solving a problem or can position itself as an expert. Can someone doing sales at an AI startup really replace pitches with conversations? Probably not. Maybe someday they will, but not today. And until that day comes, they'll probably have to keep churning out free work for clients who are still figuring out what they even need. Sure, AI startups may eventually figure out how to win without pitching, but they'll still lack what creative shops take for granted, which is a sense of purpose bigger than the next deal. Blair Enns puts this in words in the book's closing proclamation titled, "We will hold our heads high." And I'm quoting the last part. The cause of our revolution is not to rid the world of free pitching. It's to build a business that allows us to rise to the highest heights possible and make an impact on the world that is larger than us. We will master the 12 proclamations so that our enterprise may sustain us and nourish our creativity. We will do great work for those who respect us and pay us our worth. From our rewards, we will use our gifts to lift our families, inspire our communities, and influence all of humankind. Focus, selectivity, respectful selling, continuous learning, and conquering money. These are but steps on our path. End quote. These are words that AI cannot and will probably never write. This is Praveen Gopal Krishnan, and I have read out today's edition of the Nutgraf. You can find it in full on our website at theken.com/thenutgraf. By the way, if you've made it this far and you're curious about the Ken's Narrative Workshop program, how we structure it and who we have worked with, you can check out the link in the show notes. Sound and production for this episode was done by Rajiv CN. I'll be back again with another edition next week.